My name is Faye Brooks, and I'm 38 years old. While I was selecting flowers for my husband David's casket, his brother Marcus was changing the locks on my inherited lakeside cabin. The audacity still takes my breath away. Imagine grieving the love of your life while your own family plots to steal from you. They thought a widow would be too weak to fight back. They thought wrong. What happened at that family meeting still sends shivers down my spine, not from fear, but from the sweet taste of justice served cold and legal. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Your support means everything. Let me take you back to the worst and best week of my life. David passed away on a Tuesday morning. Heart attack at 41. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of funeral arrangements, flowers, and an endless stream of casseroles from well-meaning neighbors. His mother Helen kept saying, "Be strong, dear," while barely acknowledging my existence at the service. The cabin had been David's sanctuary, inherited from his grandmother Rose 2 years before we married. Nestled on Lake Meredith, 40 minutes from town, it was our weekend escape. David had put it in my name last year. Just in case, he'd said. Thank God for his foresight. Marcus showed up at the funeral in a new suit, which was odd since he'd been crying poverty for months. He hugged me too long, whispered, "We'll take care of everything." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. The morning after the burial, my phone buzzed. Janet, our neighbor at the lake, texted, "Someone's at your cabin. Truck's been here since dawn. Everything okay?" My hands shook as I called her back. "What kind of truck?" "U-Haul. They're moving furniture in." The 40-minute drive felt like hours. My Honda Civic crunched up the gravel drive to find Marcus's pickup parked beside a moving truck. The front door stood open, my front door. But when I tried my key, it wouldn't fit. The locks had been changed. Marcus emerged, sweating despite the cool morning. "Faye, didn't expect you so soon." "What are you doing?" "Helping out. You've got enough on your plate." He dangled new keys. "Got you better locks. The old ones were ancient." "You changed my locks? Without asking?" "Family helps family." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Helen thought you'd appreciate one less worry." I stood there, numb. David's body wasn't even cold, and his brother was claiming our sanctuary. But I didn't scream, didn't cry. Something David once told me echoed in my mind. Marcus takes what he wants unless someone stops him legally. "I need those keys, Marcus." "Of course. I made copies for everyone. Safety reasons." He handed me a single key. "Mom has one, I kept one, and Cousin Rita too, for emergencies." The violation felt complete. While I'd been choosing between oak and mahogany caskets, Marcus had been scheming. While I'd written David's eulogy, he'd been changing my locks. I left without another word. But I wasn't retreating. I was planning. The Brooks family never truly accepted me. 8 years of marriage, and I remained David's wife, never just Faye. At family dinners, Helen would introduce me as David's wife, the teacher, like my profession was a quaint hobby. "A teacher's salary doesn't prepare you for managing real estate," Helen mentioned at David's wake, loud enough for others to hear. "That cabin needs someone with experience." The whispers started immediately. Marcus, the successful contractor. Me, the elementary school teacher who drove a 10-year-old Civic. The narrative wrote itself in their minds. 2 days after the lock incident, Helen called a family meeting. "To discuss David's affairs," she said. But I knew better. The Brooks family didn't discuss. They decreed. Marcus had already started his campaign. At the funeral lunch, he'd mentioned to cousins how overwhelmed I looked. "Faye's too fragile right now," he'd said, patting my shoulder while I stood right there. "She needs protecting." The extended family nodded along. Poor Faye, sweet, weak Faye. Out of her depth, Faye. What they didn't know was that I'd been recording these conversations on my phone. David had taught me that. "Document everything with my family," he'd warned. "They rewrite history." Helen cornered me at the grocery store. Dear, about the cabin. Perhaps Marcus could manage it temporarily? You have so much to process. I'm managing fine, Helen. Her lips pursed. Are you? Because Marcus says you haven't even been there to check on things. The trap was elegant. Stay away, and I'm negligent. Show up, and I'm trespassing in what Marcus now considered his domain. Their silence about the changed locks spoke volumes. They all knew. They were all complicit. But I smiled, nodded, and let them think I was crumbling. Sometimes the best strategy is letting your opponent believe they've already won. The pressure intensified daily. Marcus called offering to help with maintenance at the cabin. Winter's coming. Pipes need checking. I'll handle it, Marcus. Come on, Faye. David would want family looking after you. His tone suggested I was being difficult. I'm just trying to help. Helen recruited reinforcements. David's Aunt Patricia called. Marcus is so thoughtful offering to manage that property. You should let him help, dear. Cousin Rita texted, Hey, Marcus mentioned the cabin situation. Smart to have family oversight during probate. There was no probate. The cabin was mine, free and clear. But Marcus had spun his web brilliantly. At the bank, where I'd gone to handle David's accounts, the teller mentioned, Your brother-in-law was here asking about the cabin's mortgage. There was no mortgage, but Marcus was fishing, building his case that I couldn't handle the financial burden. The family group chat, which I'd always been excluded from, suddenly included me. Messages flooded in. Thinking of you, Faye. Let us help. Marcus has experience with property management. No shame in accepting support during grief. Each message felt like another bar in a cage they were building around me. The subtext was clear. Step aside gracefully, or we'll make this difficult. Helen's final push came during her visit to check on me. She sat in my kitchen, David's kitchen, sipping tea from his favorite mug. You need family support right now, not more burdens, she said. The cabin is a lot for someone in your situation. My situation? Widowed, working full-time, no children to help. She patted my hand. Marcus wants to preserve David's legacy. Let him. I wanted to scream that David's legacy was leaving the cabin to me, not his scheming brother. Instead, I nodded, smiled, and started making calls the moment she left. The cabin wasn't just property. It was worth $400,000. Lake Meredith had become prime real estate, and our modest inheritance had quintupled in value over 5 years. Marcus knew exactly what he was trying to steal. But beyond money, it held everything David and I had built together. His handmade bookshelf, our anniversary wine collection, the dock where he'd proposed. Marcus had already contaminated it with his presence, his furniture, his claim. The family meeting was set for Saturday. Helen insisted everyone attend. 15 relatives who'd barely spoken to me at David's funeral would now decide my fate. Marcus had been busy, I learned. He'd told them all I'd agreed to a temporary arrangement. Faye understands, he'd assured them. She's grateful for the help. Janet from the lake called again. That brother-in-law's been here every day. Changed the mailbox name to Brooks Family Cabin. Is that what you wanted? My silence had been interpreted as consent. Marcus was creating facts on the ground, possession being 9/10 of the law, as he loved to say. He'd even updated his Facebook, renovating the family cabin, healing through hard work. Friends messaged me. How generous of you to share David's cabin with his family during this difficult time. I'd lost my husband, and now they were erasing me from our life together. The cabin would become the Brooks family retreat, with me as an afterthought, a guest in my own property. Helen called Friday night. Tomorrow's meeting is really just a formality, dear. Marcus has everything arranged. I'm sure he does, I replied. She missed my tone entirely. Possession is 9/10 of the law, right? She actually laughed. Marcus always was the practical one. That night, I organized my documents and made one crucial phone call. They wanted to talk about possession? Fine, let's talk about the law. Marcus posted photos from the cabin on Instagram. Sunset from the deck. Blessed to carry on family traditions. 200 likes. Comments poured in about his dedication to preserving David's memory. My coworker showed me at lunch. Your brother-in-law seems sweet, maintaining David's place like that. It's my place, actually. Her face reddened. Oh, I just assumed, since he's there. That was the genius of Marcus's strategy. Create a new reality through social media and people accept it as truth. He'd hosted a barbecue there last weekend. I saw the photos. Helen featured prominently, raising a toast to family unity in difficult times. My supposed generosity became town gossip. At the pharmacy, David's former colleague mentioned, "Heard you're sharing the cabin with Marcus. That's so generous during your grief." I haven't agreed to anything. He looked confused. But Helen said at church. The narrative was set. Poor grieving Faye, wisely letting capable Marcus handle things. Any protest now would seem petty, ungrateful, even unstable. Helen escalated Thursday evening, bringing Marcus to my house unannounced. "We need to finalize tomorrow's announcement," she said, as if my agreement was assumed. Marcus spread renovation plans across my dining table. "Already got estimates for the new deck. My treat, of course." "You're renovating my cabin?" "Our family cabin," Helen corrected. "David would want it maintained properly." The audacity stole my breath. They sat in my home, planning changes to my property, expecting gratitude for their theft. "Sometimes silence is strategy, not surrender," I said quietly. Marcus laughed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll find out tomorrow." Helen and Marcus exchanged glances. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across their faces. But Marcus recovered quickly, gathering his plans. "Don't worry, Faye, we've got everything handled." As they left, I touched David's photo on the mantel. "Almost time, love." If you've ever dealt with family members who crossed boundaries during your vulnerable moments, hit that like button. Your support helps me share these important stories about standing up for yourself. And please, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you experienced something similar? I'm reading every single one, and your stories give me strength. The family meeting is about to begin, and what happens next still gives me goosebumps. Let's continue with what happened when 15 Brooks family members gathered to seal my fate. Saturday arrived gray and drizzling, fitting weather for an ambush. Helen's living room filled with Brooks' relatives, 15 judges for a trial where I was both defendant and only witness for the defense. Marcus had staged everything perfectly. He stood by the fireplace, confidence radiating, keys jangling in his pocket. The new keys to my cabin. Helen sat in David's father's old chair, the family matriarch presiding over her court. I arrived last, intentionally. Conversations stopped. Eyes tracked my movement to an isolated chair near the door. In my hands, a leather portfolio, David's, actually, the one he used for important meetings. "Now that everyone's here," Helen began, "Marcus has wonderful news about managing David's cabin situation." David's cabin, not mine. The erasure continued. Marcus stepped forward like he was accepting an award. "Family takes care of family," he announced. "I've already moved some things to the cabin to begin renovations." Aunt Patricia nodded approvingly. "So responsible." "The locks were ancient," Marcus continued, producing the new keys with a flourish. "Security upgrade was priority one." He held them up like a trophy. 3 keys catching the light. One for him, one for Helen, one supposedly for me, except mine was probably a fake. I'd checked. It barely turned in the lock. "I've invested quite a bit already," Marcus said. "New furniture, security system scheduled for installation. My treat, of course." Cousin Rita piped up. "Faye, you must be so relieved." All eyes turned to me. This was my cue to express gratitude, to fold into their narrative. Instead, I opened the portfolio and pulled out a thin stack of papers. "Please continue, Marcus," I said, my voice steady as granite. He blinked, thrown by my calm. "Well, I've arranged for contractors next week. The dock needs work." "Fascinating," I said, making a note. Helen frowned. "Faye, dear, Marcus is being extremely generous." Oh, I agree. Very generous with my property. The room shifted. Marcus's jaw tightened. We're trying to help you. By changing my locks without permission? For security? By moving furniture into my cabin while I was burying my husband? Silence crackled. The leather portfolio felt warm in my hands, its contents waiting. But not yet. Let them dig deeper. Marcus recovered his composure quickly. Faye's obviously still emotional. Understandable, given everything. The dismissal was surgical. Acknowledged my grief while invalidating my concerns. Several relatives nodded sympathetically. Poor emotional Faye. I've already scheduled contractors, Marcus pressed on. Deposits paid. Would be a shame to waste that money. Whose money? I asked. Does it matter? It's a win-win situation. His smile could have sold ice to Eskimos. You get a renovated cabin, I get satisfaction from helping. Helen intervened. Marcus is sacrificing his time and resources, Faye. Show some appreciation. $400,000 worth of appreciation? The number hung in the air. Several relatives shifted uncomfortably. They hadn't known the value. Marcus's face flushed. This isn't about money. Then you won't mind paying rent? Rent? I'm improving the property. Without my permission, while living there. That's called squatting, Marcus. Gasps rippled through the room. Helen stood, indignant. How dare you speak to him that way? How dare he change my locks? He's family. So was David. Didn't stop you from planning this before his body was cold. Marcus stepped closer, looming. Listen carefully, Faye. This is happening. I've invested too much to stop now. Interesting perspective, I said, pulling a document from the portfolio. What's that supposed to be? Patience, Marcus, you were saying? He grabbed the bait. The cabin needs a man's touch. David would understand. Would he? Because David's the one who put it solely in my name. That was just paperwork. Legal paperwork. Binding paperwork. Helen scoffed. Papers don't matter when family's involved. I almost laughed. They'd walked right into it. So you're admitting Marcus took possession without legal right? We're admitting nothing, Marcus snapped. Possession is 9/10 of the law. You keep saying that. I stood, matching his energy. Let's talk about the other 10th. My phone buzzed. Perfect timing. I glanced at the screen and smiled. Expecting someone? Marcus asked, sarcasm dripping. As a matter of fact, yes. The doorbell rang. The room froze. Helen looked between me and the door. Who did you invite to my home? Someone who understands the whole law, not just 9/10. Marcus's confidence finally cracked. Faye, what did you do? Exactly what David would have wanted. I protected what's mine. Should I answer that? Helen asked, her voice uncertain now. Please do, I said. It's important. She moved toward the door slowly, like approaching a trap. Marcus's eyes never left mine. The relatives whispered among themselves, the mood shifting from certainty to confusion. Marcus, I said conversationally, you mentioned deposits to contractors. Which company? Brennan Construction. Why? Just curious about your permitting process. His face paled slightly. Permits? For renovations on property you don't own. I'm sure you filed the proper paperwork. I don't need. Legal procedures can be educational, I said, echoing something David used to say about his brother's shortcuts. Helen returned, her face tight. There's a woman. Says she's here for Faye. Send her in, I said. Sarah Mitchell entered like she owned the room, which, in a way, she did. Navy suit, briefcase, and an expression that could freeze hellfire. David's estate lawyer, though I hadn't mentioned that yet. Mrs. Brooks, she nodded to me, then surveyed the room. Quite a gathering, Marcus found his voice. Who are you? Someone who should have been consulted before you changed those locks. Sarah set her briefcase on Helen's coffee table with deliberate precision. This is a family meeting, Helen protested, about property theft. That makes it my business. The word theft detonated in the room. Cousins exchanged alarmed glances. Aunt Patricia clutched her purse. My phone buzzed again. Another perfectly timed message. I showed it to Sarah, who nodded. Mrs. Brooks, should we proceed with the documentation? Not yet, I said. Marcus was explaining his renovations. Please, Marcus, continue. He stood frozen, keys still in his hand. The trophies of his conquest now felt like evidence. Nothing to add? I asked. You were so eloquent a moment ago. Marcus rallied, puffing his chest out. I don't know who you are, lady, but this is family business. Sarah smiled. All teeth, no warmth. Property law doesn't recognize family business as a legal category. The cabin belongs to the Brooks family, Helen insisted. According to what document? Sarah asked. David was a Brooks. Was, past tense. His widow is very much present tense. Marcus's confidence returned in a surge of bravado. Look, I've already invested thousands. New furniture, security system on order, contractors lined up. How industrious, Sarah said. All without permission or permits. I don't need... You need both, actually. Sarah opened her briefcase with theatrical precision. Mrs. Brooks, shall we review the timeline? I pulled out my phone. Marcus posted about renovating the family cabin 6 days ago. David died 10 days ago. Gasps from the relatives. The math was damning. He was grieving, Helen defended. We all were. Grief manifests strangely, I agreed. Some people cry. Marcus apparently goes furniture shopping. Marcus's face went crimson. You're twisting everything. Am I? You changed my locks while I was at David's funeral. That's not grief, Marcus. That's opportunism. I was helping. You were helping yourself to my property. Sarah pulled out a thick document, the official seal visible. This might clarify things. Marcus eyed it like a cobra. What is that? Patience, I said, savoring his own word. You haven't finished explaining your vision for my cabin, he sputtered. Our family cabin. Keep saying that, Sarah advised. The court reporter will find it fascinating. Court reporter? Helen's voice cracked. The doorbell rang again. This time no one moved. They all stared at me, finally understanding they'd walked into something much bigger than a family meeting. Should someone get that? I asked innocently. Marcus's bravado transformed into desperation. You're being ridiculous, Faye. You can't manage that property alone. Because I'm just a teacher? Because you're... He gestured vaguely. Overwhelmed. Too weak, I suggested. Too feminine? Too poor? I didn't say. You've said it for weeks, to everyone, that I'm too fragile, too emotional, too incompetent to handle my own property. Helen jumped in. Marcus has experience. He's a contractor. Who's operating without permits, insurance, or ownership? Sarah noted. Details, Marcus exploded. I'm trying to preserve David's legacy. David's legacy? I stood, matching his volume for the first time. David's legacy was ensuring I'd be protected from exactly this. The doorbell rang again, insistent now. For God's sake, someone answer that, Aunt Patricia said. Rita scurried to the door. We heard muffled voices, then she returned, face pale. There are police officers. They're asking for Marcus. The room erupted. Cousins stood, voices overlapping. Helen grabbed Marcus's arm. What did you do? She hissed at me. I protected my property, I said. Let them in, Rita. Don't you dare, Marcus shouted. But Rita, terrified of being seen as uncooperative with police, had already opened the door. Officer Daniel Torres entered, flanked by 2 deputies. His presence filled the room with immediate authority. The relatives pressed against walls, creating space. Marcus Brooks? Torres asked. Marcus straightened, trying to project innocence. Yes? We need to discuss a breaking and entering complaint. That's insane! It's my family's cabin! Face reality, Marcus, I said, throwing his words back. It's my cabin, only mine. Torres looked at me. Mrs. Brooks? You filed the complaint? This morning, after Mr. Brooks admitted to changing my locks without permission, in front of 15 witnesses, every face in the room turned toward Marcus. The witnesses he'd gathered to cement his claim had become witnesses to his confession. This is entrapment, Marcus sputtered. This is accountability, Sarah corrected. Mrs. Brooks, the documentation? I handed Torres the deed, the will, the certificate of title, all clearly showing sole ownership. Faye Brooks. Not the Brooks family, not Marcus, just me. Helen sank into her chair. David wouldn't want this. David predicted this, I said. Why do you think he put everything in my name? Marcus's composure shattered completely. You set me up. You set yourself up, I replied. I just documented it. He stepped toward me aggressively. Torres moved between us. Sir, step back. She's destroying our family, Marcus shouted. You destroyed our family when you tried to steal from David's widow, I said. Helen stood, shaking. Faye, please. We can work this out privately. Like you worked out changing my locks privately? Like you worked out moving furniture privately? Like you worked out telling everyone I'd agreed to something I never agreed to? That was a misunderstanding. That was a conspiracy. Sarah pulled out another document. I have sworn statements from neighbors who witnessed the U-Haul, the lock changes, and Mr. Brooks claiming ownership. Marcus lunged for the papers. Torres caught his arm. Sir, you need to calm down. This is my family's property. No, Torres said firmly. According to these documents, it's hers, and you've admitted to changing the locks without permission. So what? I'm family. Family doesn't grant you property rights, Torres said. Mr. Brooks, you have two options. Leave the property voluntarily within 24 hours, or we arrest you now for criminal trespass. The room went silent. Even the clock seemed to stop ticking. You can't be serious, Marcus whispered. Dead serious, Torres replied. What's it going to be? Helen grabbed Marcus's arm. Son, please, don't make this worse. Worse? Marcus laughed bitterly. She's stealing everything. I'm keeping what's mine, I corrected. There's a difference. This discussion is over, Marcus snarled. Yes, Torres agreed. It is. Your decision, Mr. Brooks? Voluntary compliance or arrest? Marcus looked around the room, at his mother's horrified face, at relatives backing away, at Sarah's satisfied expression, at the officers waiting. Finally, his eyes met mine. You planned this whole thing. I planned to grieve my husband in peace. You planned a theft. Guess which plan the law supports? His shoulders sagged. The fight drained out of him like air from a punctured tire. 24 hours? 24 hours, Torres confirmed. Every item you brought, gone. Locks changed back or new keys provided to Mrs. Brooks immediately. Officer, arrest this man for trespassing, I said clearly. Everyone froze. Wait, Marcus gasped. I'll comply. I'll leave. Can you believe Marcus's audacity? If this story resonates with you, please subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Family conflicts over inheritance are more common than you think. I see your comments about similar experiences, and my heart goes out to each of you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about setting firm boundaries. The police are still here, and what happens next shows exactly why documentation matters. Now, let's see how the law handles this situation when Marcus finally faces real consequences. Torres studied me for a moment. Then Marcus. Mrs. Brooks has every right to press charges. Please, Helen begged. He's made mistakes, but he's grieving his brother. Grief doesn't excuse theft, Sarah interjected. She pulled out more papers from her briefcase. This is the will, properly witnessed and notarized. This is the deed transfer, completed 13 months ago. This is the property tax record showing Mrs. Brooks as sole owner. She laid each document out on Helen's coffee table, like playing cards in a winning hand. And this, she produced a final paper with flourish, is the police report Mrs. Brooks filed this morning, documenting the unauthorized entry and lock changes. Torres examined each document. Mr. Brooks, Did you change the locks on this property? Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish. 15 relatives leaned forward, waiting. I I was securing the property. That's a yes? Torres pressed. Yes, but did you have Mrs. Brooks' permission? The trap was elegant. Lie to police or admit to the crime. Marcus looked desperately at his mother. Marcus? Helen whispered. Tell the truth. His shoulders slumped. No, I didn't have permission. We have our answer, Torres said. He turned to me. Mrs. Brooks, given Mr. Brooks's admission and agreement to vacate, are you willing to forgo immediate arrest if he complies with a restraining order? Sarah leaned in. My client is prepared to be reasonable if Mr. Brooks acknowledges in writing that he has no claim to the property and will cease all contact regarding it. That's extortion, Marcus exploded. That's generous, Torres corrected. Criminal trespass carries jail time. The relatives began murmuring. The scandal of Marcus being arrested would ripple through their social circles for years. Aunt Patricia spoke up. Marcus, take the deal. You're siding with her? He looked betrayed. I'm siding with the law, Patricia replied. You changed her locks, Marcus. What did you expect? One by one, the relatives began nodding. The tide had turned. Their fantasy of the family cabin dissolved against the reality of legal documents and police presence. I filed it this morning, I said quietly. After you posted about your barbecue at my cabin, after you told everyone I'd agreed to something I never agreed to, after you made me a stranger to my own property. Helen's face crumpled. Faye, David wouldn't... David? David left me a letter, I interrupted, pulling it from the portfolio. Would you like me to read what he said about Marcus? About why he put everything in my name? Marcus went white. He wrote about me? He wrote about protecting me. From this. From you. The silence stretched until Torres cleared his throat. Mr. Brooks, I need an answer. Comply with the restraining order or face arrest. Sarah stepped forward with a prepared document. This constitutes criminal trespass, breaking and entering, and attempted theft of property valued at $400,000. The number hit the relatives like cold water. Several gasped. That wasn't a family squabble amount. That was felony territory. Furthermore, Sarah continued, changing locks without authorization is considered an illegal eviction under state law, even though Mrs. Brooks wasn't residing there full-time. But I'm family. Marcus's refrain sounded weaker each time. Family members commit 30% of property crimes, Torres noted. Being related doesn't grant immunity. Sarah produced another document. Mr. Brooks, you have 24 hours to vacate completely. Every item you brought must be removed. Original keys returned or new locks installed at your expense, with keys provided immediately to Mrs. Brooks. This is insane, Marcus muttered. This is criminal, Sarah corrected. What's insane is thinking you could steal a widow's inheritance while she was burying her husband. Helen stood shakily. There must be a misunderstanding. Marcus was trying to help. Help himself to my property, I said. Helen, he changed my locks during David's funeral. During the funeral. The relatives shifted uncomfortably. Even those who'd supported Marcus couldn't defend that timing. I need all the keys, Marcus, I said. Now. He clutched them reflexively. I paid for these locks. Then you can take them with you when you restore my original locks, Torres suggested, or leave them and consider it a donation. Marcus looked around the room for support, found none. Even Helen had sunk back into her chair, defeated. Slowly, like it physically pained him, Marcus removed the keys from his pocket. 3 keys on a new ring. He held them out, but when I reached for them, he pulled back. You're making a huge mistake. You can't manage that property alone. Watch me, I said, holding out my hand steadily. He slapped the keys into my palm with unnecessary force. Torres stepped closer. Mr. Brooks, any aggressive behavior will result in immediate arrest. I want it on record, I said clearly, that Marcus admitted to changing my locks without permission in front of 15 witnesses and 3 law enforcement officers. Sarah was already writing. Noted and documented. You've destroyed this family, Marcus spat. No, Marcus. You destroyed this family when you decided theft was acceptable. I'm just holding you accountable. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it and smiled. My locksmith is already at the cabin. He'll be changing the locks again within the hour. This time I'll be the only one with keys. You planned everything, Helen said, not quite a question. I protected myself, I replied. Just like David taught me. Torres pulled out his citation book. Mr. Brooks, you're being issued a formal warning for criminal trespass. Any violation of the 24-hour vacate order will result in immediate arrest. Marcus's hands shook as he signed the citation. The sound of pen on paper echoed in the silent room. Additionally, Torres continued, Mrs. Brooks has the right to pursue civil damages for the illegal lock change and any property damage. What damages? Marcus protested. I improved the place. Unauthorized modifications are considered damage, Sarah explained. Mrs. Brooks, do you wish to pursue civil action? I let the question hang. Marcus's face cycled through fear, anger, and finally, exhaustion. That depends on Marcus, I said. Full compliance, no drama, and we can avoid court. That's blackmail. That's mercy, Torres corrected. Take it. Helen finally found her voice. Marcus, please, just do what she asks. Mom, she's David's widow, the legal owner. And you, Helen's voice cracked. You tried to steal from her during the funeral. My God, Marcus, what were you thinking? The admission from his own mother broke something in Marcus. His shoulders slumped completely. I need you to sign this, Sarah presented another document. Acknowledging you have no claim to the property and will not attempt to access it without written permission from Mrs. Brooks. And if I don't? Then we proceed with criminal charges, Torres said simply. The evidence is overwhelming. Marcus looked at the document like it was his own death warrant, but surrounded by police, witnesses, and irrefutable evidence, he had no choice. He signed. I'll also need the garage door opener, any spare keys you made, and the new mailbox key, I added. Marcus's face flushed. He'd thought I didn't know about those. Wordlessly, he pulled them from his pocket. The security code you changed? His jaw dropped. How did you? My neighbor Janet has been very helpful. The code, Marcus? He muttered the numbers. Sarah wrote them down. Is that everything? Torres asked. There's a storage key, I said. For the shed. You changed that lock too. Marcus looked like he wanted to deny it, then deflated. He unclipped a small key from his keychain. The law doesn't recognize good intentions as a defense for theft, Torres said. Remember that, Mr. Brooks. Helen stood slowly. I'm sorry, Faye. I didn't know he'd gone this far. Yes, you did, I said quietly. You just thought I was too weak to fight back. Sarah pulled out one final document. Mrs. Brooks is prepared to forego criminal prosecution if Mr. Brooks agrees to these terms. Full vacation of property within 24 hours, reimbursement of $5,000 for lock changes and security updates, and a written apology acknowledging the violation of property rights. $5,000? Marcus choked. The emergency locksmith alone is $800, I said. New security system to replace the one you compromised, replacement of damaged locks, legal fees, and compensation for emotional distress during bereavement. That's highway robbery. That's a bargain to avoid jail, Torres observed. Property theft over $100,000 is a felony. You attempted to steal property worth $400,000. The math was sobering. Several relatives pulled out phones, probably calculating Marcus's potential sentence. I'll also need a restraining order, I continued. No contact regarding the cabin, no visits without written permission, no social media posts about family property. You're erasing me from my brother's life. Your brother erased you when he left everything to me, I said. Ask yourself why. That landed like a slap. Marcus looked to his mother for support, but Helen was staring at the floor. Do we have an agreement? Sarah asked. I can't afford 5,000. You afforded new furniture for my cabin, you afforded contractors, you can afford to make this right. Or you can afford a criminal defense lawyer, Torres added. Your choice. The room held its breath. Marcus looked trapped, cornered by his own actions and the consequences he never expected. If I agree to all this, then you walk out of here free, with a chance to rebuild your reputation, I said. I choose peace, but with clear boundaries. Some choice, he muttered. The same choice you gave me when you changed my locks, I replied. Except I'm offering you an exit. You offered me theft. Sarah held out the pen. Mr. Brooks? Marcus stared at the agreement. $5,000. Restraining order. Acknowledgement of guilt. His hand shook as he reached for the pen. This is extortion, he said one more time. This is consequence, Helen said quietly. Sign it, Marcus, before Faye changes her mind. The scratch of pen on paper filled the room. Marcus signed his name with the defeated air of a man signing his own confession, which, in a way, he was. Witnessed and notarized, Sarah said, as her assistant stepped forward with a notary seal. Legally binding. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Marcus's bravado evaporated completely, leaving him looking smaller, older, defeated. The relatives who'd supported him now avoided eye contact, already distancing themselves from the scandal. 24 hours starts now, Torres reminded him. I'll be checking the property tomorrow at noon. Marcus nodded mutely. His grand plan to claim the cabin had become a countdown to humiliation. Aunt Patricia approached me. Faye, I'm sorry. We should have stopped this. You saw. You all saw. You just chose to believe I was too weak to fight back. She flinched, but didn't deny it. One by one, the relatives filed out, murmuring awkward goodbyes. The family meeting that was supposed to cement Marcus's claim had become his public undoing. Helen remained in her chair, looking every one of her 65 years. I failed David, she said quietly. David knew this would happen, I replied. That's why he protected me legally. He knew his family's priorities. We're your family, too. No, Helen. Family doesn't steal from widows. Family doesn't change locks during funerals. Family doesn't require police intervention. She had no response to that. Marcus stood by the door, car keys in hand. The money will take time. You have 1 week, Sarah said. The agreement is clear. And my things at the cabin? 24 hours, Torres repeated. Not 25, not 24 and a half. 24. Marcus left without another word. Through the window, we watched him drive away, his truck somehow smaller than when he'd arrived. Respect isn't inherited, it's earned, I said to the empty room, and it can be lost even faster. Helen nodded slowly, finally understanding what her younger son had always known, that family bonds don't excuse family betrayal. Marcus cleared out in 19 hours. Janet called with updates. U-Haul arrived at dawn, Marcus working frantically, throwing furniture into the truck like a man fleeing a crime scene, which technically he was. The money transferred in 6 days, $5,000 appearing in my account with a terse memo. Per agreement. No apology beyond the forced written one Sarah had filed. I changed every lock, installed cameras, and upgraded the security system. The cabin became a fortress, but more importantly, it became mine again. Truly, completely mine. The social consequences rippled through town. Marcus's contracting business suffered when word spread. Who wants to hire someone who steals from widows? 3 clients canceled within a month. Helen called once, asking if I'd consider letting Marcus visit the cabin for David's memory. David's memory lives in me, I told her, not in Marcus's crimes. She never called again. The restraining order was official, filed with the county. Marcus couldn't come within 500 feet of the property. The man who'd proclaimed possession as 9/10 of the law now possessed nothing but regret. A month later, I found something while cleaning the cabin. Hidden in the shed Marcus had broken into, David had left a note, dated a year before his death. If you're reading this in the shed, it means Marcus tried something. I knew he would. That's why everything is in your name, my love. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to use the law instead of anger. Make him face consequences. Love, David. He'd known. He'd prepared me. Even in death, David was still protecting me. David always said, "Hope for the best, prepare for the worst," I whispered to his photo on the mantel. Thank you for preparing me, love. 6 months later, I sit on the cabin's dock, watching sunset paint Lake Meredith gold. The water is calm, peaceful, everything Marcus's invasion wasn't. This place has healed, and so have I. Setting boundaries isn't about anger or revenge. It's about self-respect. Marcus thought my silence was weakness, my grief was vulnerability to exploit. He learned that quiet people aren't weak, we're calculating. The law became my voice when family tried to silence me. Documentation became my strength when they assumed I had none. David knew this would happen and armed me accordingly. I've learned that family who truly love you don't require legal intervention. They don't change locks during funerals or claim your inheritance as their right. Real family respects boundaries without restraining orders. The Brooks family gatherings continue without me. I'm the villain in their story, the greedy widow who chose property over people. Let them. I chose justice over exploitation, boundaries over violation, David's wishes over their entitlement. Marcus still works in town, diminished. We passed once at the grocery store. He turned down another aisle. The man who once loomed over me now can't meet my eyes. Helen sent a Christmas card with no message, just her signature. An acknowledgement of what we both know. Family isn't about blood, it's about behavior. Strength isn't always loud, I tell friends who ask about that terrible week. Sometimes it's knowing your rights and refusing to surrender them. The cabin stands as David intended, my sanctuary, my inheritance, my home. Not the Brooks family cabin, just mine. Protected by law, secured by boundaries, and preserved through courage I didn't know I had until I needed it. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't what you win, but what you refuse to lose. That's my story. How I learned that the law is stronger than family pressure, and documentation beats intimidation every time. David prepared me for a battle I wished I'd never have to fight, but when it came, I was ready. To those watching who face similar violations, you're not alone. Family betrayal cuts deepest because it comes from those who should protect us. But you have rights, regardless of who tries to take them. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. Using the law isn't heartless, it's smart. Protecting your inheritance isn't greedy, it's honoring your loved one's wishes. Marcus wanted the cabin, but more than that, he wanted me powerless. He got neither. The Brooks family wanted submission disguised as unity. They got legal consequences instead. If someone is trying to take what's yours, document everything. Record conversations, file reports, get legal help. Don't let grief make you vulnerable to those who see tragedy as opportunity. David's final gift wasn't just the cabin, it was the knowledge that I could protect it, that I was stronger than anyone believed, including myself. Today, the cabin hosts friends who respect its story, children who play on its dock, and memories that no one can steal. It's not the Brooks family cabin, it's Faye's sanctuary, bought with courage and kept with boundaries. What boundaries have you had to set with family? Have you ever had to choose legal action over keeping the peace? Share your story in the comments below. We're stronger when we stand together. Thank you for listening. Remember, family isn't about blood, it's about respect. And respect isn't given, it's earned, maintained, and sometimes enforced. Until next time, stay strong, know your rights, and never apologize for protecting what's yours. Thank you for listening to my story. If it helped you think about your own boundaries, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear this. Remember, Standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Subscribe for more real-life stories about dignity, respect, and justice. And please, tell me in the comments, have you ever had to involve law enforcement with family matters? Your stories matter too. Until next time, stay strong and know your worth.